the burning neon lights of New Olympus, a massive space station orbiting Titan, flickered against the void of space. Among the billions of humans scattered across the galaxy, Ethan Voss had always felt like an outsider in his own home. "Shields at 40%, shouted Dax, their engineer. "We can't hold forever." Ethan made his choice. "Punch through their defenses. Get me to my mother's ship." Sarah's expression darkened. "You sure?" "She's my responsibility." Ethan's voice was cold. "Not my family, just my responsibility." Sarah didn't argue. The nightfall dove through the battlefield, weaving between wreckage, until finally, there. Dr. Helena Voss's ship, the Helios, was barely more than a crippled husk. Fires raged along its hull, life support was failing, and inside, his mother and Kale were running out of time. His mother, Dr. Helena Voss, was one of the most brilliant xenobiologists in the Terran Federation, but for as long as he could remember, she had poured all her love and attention into Kale, her adopted son, an alien hybrid rescued from a dying planet. Ethan, he was just there. Ignored, overlooked, unimportant. He had tried, again and again, to earn her love, to be enough, but tonight was the last straw. "Ethan, please." Helena barely spared him a glance as she adjusted Kale's cybernetic implants. "Kale's physiology is delicate. He needs me. And I don't?" The words never left his lips. Instead, he clenched his fists, nodded stiffly, and walked away. For the last time. A new life among the stars, with nothing but a stolen hoverpack, a credit chip with a few hundred units, and a heart full of rage, Ethan disappeared into the underbelly of New Olympus. The station was a cesspool of criminals, mercenaries, and exiles, the perfect place for someone who wanted to start over. That's where he met Sarah Kane, a rogue AI specialist and former Federation pilot. Unlike his mother, she didn't see him as lesser. Unlike Kale, she didn't overshadow him. She saw him for what he was, a survivor. Together, they built something real, a crew, a reputation, a life. They took dangerous jobs, smuggled black market tech, and eventually, they became legends. Ethan was no longer the forgotten son of a famous scientist. He was Captain Voss, leader of the Ghost Runners. The reckoning, but fate had other plans. Years later, a distress signal rang through the deep void. The Terran Federation's fleet had been ambushed by an unknown enemy, an advanced, ruthless alien species called the Zirak. Their ships tore through defenses like paper. Among the stranded survivors? Dr. Helena Voss and Kale. Ethan stood on the bridge of his ship, the nightfall, watching the incoming SOS. He could ignore it, leave them to their fate, just as they had left him. But then Sarah placed a hand on his shoulder. "Your call, Captain." Ethan exhaled. This was it. He wasn't the boy begging for his mother's love anymore. He was something more, and whether they deserved it or not, humanity never left their own behind. "Prep the weapons," Ethan ordered, his eyes burning with purpose. "We're going in." Part 2, The Return of the Forgotten Son. The nightfall ripped through subspace, its sleek black hull shimmering against the dark void. The Ghost Runners had seen their share of battles, but this was different. This wasn't just a job. This was personal. Ethan stood on the command deck, arms crossed, staring at the tactical screen. The distress signal blinked faintly, a dying plea for help. "Status?" he asked. Sarah's fingers danced over the hollow interface. "Federation fleet's in bad shape. Most ships are either destroyed or drifting. The Zirak are running cleanup." She paused, then glanced at Ethan. "Helena's ship is barely holding together." Ethan's jaw tightened. He should leave her, let her see what it feels like to be left behind. But something deep inside wouldn't let him. Maybe it was duty, maybe it was revenge, maybe he just wanted her to see him not as the boy she abandoned, but as the man he had become. Either way, the nightfall was going in. A sky of fire. As the ship exited subspace, chaos unfolded before them. Wreckage drifted like tombstones. Federation vessels burned, their hulls cracked open like eggshells, and in the distance, a massive Zirak warship, shaped like a jagged obsidian spear, loomed over the battlefield. The enemy wasn't expecting reinforcements. "Target their weapons array," Ethan ordered. "We hit hard and fast." The nightfall's cannons roared, sending streams of plasma fire straight into the Zirak's side. Explosions rippled along its hull, and for the first time, the alien ship hesitated. Then, the retaliation came. A Zirak fighter squadron peeled off, streaking toward them like vengeful wraiths. Sarah smirked. Oh, they wanna play? She yanked the controls, sending the Nightfall into a brutal spin. Automated turrets blasted through the enemy swarm, turning fighters into fireballs, but there were too many. Ethan stormed through the burning corridors, smoke stinging his eyes. His crew followed, weapons drawn. They found Helena in the medical bay, desperately trying to stabilize Kale, who was unconscious and bleeding. The alien hybrid's skin flickered with bioluminescent patterns, his body struggling to heal. Helena's eyes widened when she saw Ethan. You came, she whispered. Ethan ignored the pang in his chest. You need evac, now. Helena hesitated, glancing down at Kale. He won't survive a rough extraction. I need time. We don't have time. Ethan's voice was like steel. Move, or you both die here. For the first time, Helena really looked at him, not as the son she had ignored, not as the shadow of the child she preferred, but as the man who had come to save her, even when she hadn't done the same for him. Regret flickered across her face, but Ethan wasn't here for apologies. A deep rumble shook the ship. Sarah's voice crackled through his calm. Zirak warship just locked weapons on you. You need to get the hell out now. Ethan grabbed his mother's arm, pulling her toward the exit. Move. Helena faltered. What about Kale? Ethan's eyes burned. What about me? For one bitter moment, he almost left Kale behind, almost made Helena choose. But he wasn't her. Dax, carry him, Ethan growled. His engineer slung Kale over his shoulders, and they sprinted toward the docking bay. As the Nightfall's ramp closed behind them, the Helios was obliterated in a final Zirak salvo. #### the final choice. Back on the Nightfall, Helena hovered over Kale in the med bay, her hands trembling. When she turned to Ethan, her expression was unreadable. You saved us. Ethan leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You're welcome. A long silence. Then, I'm sorry, Helena whispered. It was too little, too late. Ethan met her gaze, his face unreadable. You and Kale will be dropped off at the nearest Federation station. Helena flinched. Ethan, you had your chance. His voice was quiet. Final. I built my life with people who actually gave a damn about me, and I'm not giving that up for you. Helena opened her mouth, but no words came. Ethan turned and walked away. He wasn't her forgotten son anymore. He was his own man.